Mic check real quick. K-Mac.
1, 2, check 1, 2, 3, 4, check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
right,
check 1, 2,
good.
3, 4, 5. Is Corn on? I guess he's on ISDN. I mean, the Comrex.
Yeah, he's on Thailand.
All right, good.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network here on a Friday night heading into the weekend. Hope you've had a great day. Basketball continues here in Nashville, Tennessee. We are downtown Nashville at the Bridgestone Arena site of the SEC tournament as we're in the quarterfinal round today. And two teams have moved on with wins today. And we've got two more games coming up tonight. In just a little bit, Kentucky and Alabama. And then, of course, the final game of the night, South Carolina and Georgia, will get you set for all that. It's calm and quiet in here right now, but the storm is coming at 7 o'clock as Kentucky's fans will pretty much fill this arena. They have been here for, 3 days, a lot of them. They come early and they stay late as long as their team is winning and involved. And the Wildcats are certainly that, and they'll be taking on Alabama here in just a little while. That's going to tip off a little bit after 7 o'clock tonight. Just a little while ago, LSU took care of Tennessee. Tennessee put up a game effort after winning the last 2 days, but LSU finally playing a little bit like LSU was supposed to play, and maybe the legs on the Tennessee team finally gave out just a little bit, and they went out with the loss here just a little while ago to LSU, final score of 84-75. Earlier today, the number one seed, Texas A&M, had a bit of a battle with Florida, but A&M wins it 72-66. We've got semifinals tonight at the ACC tournament in D.C. First game is going to be North Carolina against Notre Dame. That should be a dandy. And then the nightcap coming up later on this evening in Washington should be another excellent contest. The ACC Final Four, always exciting when you get down to the last four teams. The Virginia Cavaliers playing good basketball, and Miami knocking off Virginia Tech in the last game last night. They form the other side of the semifinal bracket. Professor Tom Hayes is off tonight. K-Mac will be joining us in just a couple of moments as well as he's made his way back from D.C. after covering Clemson the other night. No sense for him hanging around there since the Tigers checked out. Tigers should be hearing something on Sunday night from the NIT, I would expect. And, of course, South Carolina pretty much, if they win tonight, there's absolutely no doubt. And I think there's still maybe in the minds of some of the experts a little bit of doubt. Jerry Palm still has the Gamecocks in the tournament, but on his so-called bubble right now. He has still got the Gamecocks as a 10 seed. He's got them playing Texas out in Spokane, Washington. Joe Lunardi, a little more confident, it appears, for the Gamecocks, but he's got them in Raleigh to play VCU, but he's removed them from the so-called bubble. In fact, this afternoon, Lunardi had South Carolina as one of the three locks from the SEC for the tournament. But, of course, that could all change if they come up short tonight against Georgia. We'll talk more about that coming up.
Oh man, what a day.
Friday night on Sports Talk across the state of South Carolina. I hope you've had a great day. If you haven't, we're going to make it a little bit better here over the next couple of hours because you are tuned in to South Carolina's most listened to, most talked about sports talk show every night, 6 to 8 across the state, South Carolina Radio Network, the show that's on the move with our teams. Phil Kornblut here in Nashville covering South Carolina in the SEC tournament. Kevin McCrary now back in Columbia. Since Clemson went home, K-Mac took just one change of clothes, something to get him back to Columbia after the Tigers lost the other night. How was the trip home there, K-Mac?
Long. It was a long trip home. A great venue there in Washington, D.C. at the Verizon Center. A heck of a facility there, and they had nice crowds. And for about, 34 minutes, Clemson looked like they were going to be around a little bit longer. But as we know, they didn't get it done against Georgia Tech. So now they're sitting back and waiting for what they hope is an NIT bid, Corn.
Yeah, I think they're going to get it with their ACC record and some of the wins that they have. And that's, that's they got to have some ACC teams in there. So, why not Clemson? I think they're worthy of that. And the ACC has a nice Final Four beginning tonight with their semifinals. North Carolina looked very good in their game the other night. Notre Dame had a great comeback against Duke. and, Notre Dame, the defending tournament champion. And then you've got on the other side, Virginia, which has just been rock steady all season long. One of those teams that really avoided any kind of a major slump against a Miami team that is still kind of an enigma to me. I mean, they on some nights can look, K-Mac, like the number one team in the country, and then on some nights like number 350. We'll see what kind of game they bring there tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's had a phenomenal season, 25-6, 13 league wins, exact same record as Virginia. Now, one of those 6 losses for Miami, as we know, Clemson and Greenville. In fact, Clemson has wins against half the teams in the Final Four at the ACC tournament. They beat Notre Dame in Greenville, and that kind of speaks to what you were saying with Clemson and their NIT resume with 4 top 25 wins. They got them in a row. Beating Duke, beating Louisville, beating Notre Dame, beating Miami. Just an unprecedented run that Clemson had in January. Unfortunately, they let a few games get away from them. A couple of losses against Georgia Tech, that road loss at NC State, and that's why we're talking NIT instead of NCAA tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then coming up here tonight, now this should be very interesting for South Carolina in that they'll probably go in, feeling like they're in the tournament. They've got plans for a watch party on Sunday, regardless of what happens here in this tournament. So they're feeling like they're in. I think it would be in their best interest to win tonight. Now, they play a Georgia team they've lost 3 straight times to, going back to this tournament last year when the Gamecocks won 2 games, then lost to Georgia. And I went back and looked, Mac, and I mean, it's pretty simple. You look at why South Carolina's lost these 3 in a row to Georgia. Number one, they haven't shot the ball well in any of the 3 games. Their highest shooting percentage in any of the 3 losses, 37%. And number two, they just have a hard time matching up inside with Yante Mayton, Georgia's big, strong guy inside, who's having a great year, averaging over 16 points per game. And he scored in double figures in all 3 games against the Gamecocks in this little winning streak Georgia has. So it's pretty clear they've got to shoot it better. They've got to reduce their turnovers, and they've got to do a better job inside. And then outside, the other thing is J.J. Frazier, who leads Georgia in scoring 17 a game. And I really wonder, what Frank Martin is going to do defensively. Martin is so quick. And I guess you put Dwayne Notice on him and hope that Dwayne Notice can stay out of a foul difficulty trying to cover him. When you play man, you may have to zone him a good bit. I got a feeling if Georgia, knowing South Carolina well, is probably going to zone the Gamecocks a good bit and dare them to beat them from the outside with their shooting. The Gamecocks need some Darius Thornwell to have a kind of game that he had against Arkansas. Don't know if Carrera is in or out yet. I imagine that'll be, if they haven't made the decision yet, I imagine they'll wait till game time and see how he feels with the hip. But if he's not, 90% or so, I wouldn't risk putting him out there and endangering any participation for him next week. So Georgia's got 1 game under its belt here from last night, and they're not going to be leg weary. Really playing 1 game and then playing the second game the next night, no big deal to these guys. It's when you get into that 3rd game in 3 nights like Tennessee faced today where you start to kind of wear down, especially if you have a thin bench. So saying all that, K-Mac, this is the team we talked about earlier in the week. I said, hey, if South Carolina's got to choose between Mississippi State and Georgia, I think I'd choose Mississippi State. So they got to play good basketball tonight against a team that's just become a nemesis for them here late.
Yeah, Georgia, they beat South Carolina last year at the SEC tournament and ended the Gamecocks. A nice little run they were building there. They beat them twice in the regular season this year. And Georgia, they're not really even a bubble team in the NCAA tournament at this point. If they get a few wins, maybe they can creep into the picture because they have been playing well lately. But we were talking about this earlier today. When's the last time that a NCAA tournament team had 3 losses in conference to a non-NCAA tournament team? I got to think that's a very, very short list. So this is a game that I don't think the Gamecocks tournament hopes are resting on this game. I do think they're in, win or lose. But let's face it, the Gamecocks haven't been to the tournament in a while. They haven't won it. And a lot of people, in my entire lifetime, I've never been breathing air on planet Earth. And the Gamecocks win an NCAA tournament game. That's how long it's been. So they need to try to get a decent seed. They don't want to go in there as a 12 seed, 11, 12 seed and be playing a higher seed. They would ideally like to be a 6 or 7 seed, playing somebody that they have a chance to beat, because anything they do in that tournament after, if they get one win, it has been a monumental season for the Gamecocks, a historic season. So that's got to be the ultimate goal. And to achieve that, they need a good seeding, so they're in a good regional with a good matchup, and they got to beat Georgia to ensure that, because they lose today, they pretty much guarantee they're going to be the higher seed in whatever game they play.
Yeah, I'm seeing that already in these bracketologist preliminary projections for the brackets. All at one point, the Gamecocks were as high as a 6 seed, but more recently they've been the 9 seed, the 10 seed. I go by, I look at Palm and I look at Lenardi. Those are two as good as anybody to check regularly, especially Lenardi. And he's got the Gamecocks. I think today he had them as a 10 seed playing the 7th seed VCU in Raleigh. That's the thing I'm looking at, is where are these guys putting them? And at least Lenardi's got him in Raleigh right now. I'm not as convinced as you are that they're a lock. I just think that don't put, if they can win tonight, then they take all questions out of it. And if they lose tonight, then they're going to be a discussed team over the weekend. They're going to be a team that's going to be looked at and scrutinized, and the body of work's going to be broken apart in the RPI. And they're going to see, hey, this team lost 3 times to Georgia, a team that's not in the tournament mix right now. Lost 3 times to Georgia. Lost to Missouri late. Lost to Mississippi State. They've got some bad losses late. And they look at your last 10 games heavily. So that's all I'm saying. Win this game and you take it out of the conversation. Lose this game and you're going to be in the conversation over the weekend. That's where you don't want to be. That's where you talk about being on that bubble. So.
I mean, wow. I mean, a 24-win team with 11 wins in the SEC, number 3 seed in the tournament, that would be unprecedented to not make the NCAA tournament. And I know they stumbled against a few teams. They have some losses. I mean, they've lost 7 games, and we're talking about Virginia, a top 10 team. They've lost 6 times this year. I mean, the Gamecocks, yeah, they've suffered some losses, but they've won 24 games. That's very impressive. There aren't a lot of teams in college basketball that have 24 wins right now that aren't going to be in the NCAA tournament, that are playing in a Power 5 conference. So that would be pretty stunning to me for South Carolina not to get in, regardless of what happens tonight. If they were to lose tonight, I could see them being one of the last 4 in, fine, but it would be a stunner if they don't get in. I would be shocked.
Yeah. Well, I would be too, but another argument against them is none of those wins that they have come against teams headed to the NCAA tournament right now. Back in a moment.
There's my water.
Okay, we are back with you. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network here on a Friday. If you want to jump in on the conversation, 800-956-7266 is the number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com. Twitter at sportstalksc. Yeah, I was just saying, Kimac, you know, the wins are nice and all that, but I'm talking about the conversation the committee will have. The only win the Gamecocks have over a team that is going to be in the NCAA tournament most likely is LSU, unless unless Alabama makes a run here and wins this tournament.
Well, they beat Texas A&M, and they won at Texas A&M, and they beat Vanderbilt. Yeah,
I don't know that Vanderbilt's going to get in after losing. Right now, they're all of Lenardi's bracket.
I saw them in the last four in earlier, but maybe that heartbreaker against Tennessee might have bounced them. But I'm not trying to say that South Carolina has knocked off a bunch of juggernauts, but I think they've played a decent schedule. And the SEC has been a solid league this year, and they have a lot of solid wins. They have won some games on the road, including at Arkansas. That's not an easy place to play. They won at Ole Miss, and we've seen what Ole Miss has been doing. They have some nice, solid wins on that resume, and they have 24 of them. That's enough. They've done enough. They needed to get that win against Arkansas, and they got it. They got 11 wins in the league. That should put them in. I don't think there's ever been an 11-win SEC team with a top 3 seed that has missed the NCAA tournament. And the committee – and let's also face this fact, too. The committee knows that the history of South Carolina, and they also know Frank Martin is good for the NCAA tournament. He's a guy that brings eyeballs to the screen. So I think they have some things working in their favor in that regard.
Do you really think that would be part of the conversation? I mean, it's an NCAA tournament game, and people are going to watch. I mean, South Carolina is not going to attract the following outside of the state. People will watch it because it's an NCAA tournament game that pops up on their screen, and it will be available. Don't you think? I'm not sure that they want to particularly get Frank Martin in because he's Frank Martin.
Well, I think Frank Martin's a character and a name. I don't think that would be why, hey, we got to get him in. South Carolina doesn't deserve to be there. I think they're going to be in the tournament because they belong there. But I do think all of those things are factored in the same way when South Carolina was in line for certain bowl games. There were probably people that wanted to get South Carolina for the Steve Spurrier effect. And I have no doubt that, and I'm not trying to make a comparison to the programs, but when Duke's on the bubble or has a chance for that better seed, or North Carolina, the tournament's better when you have certain teams and characters involved in it. And Frank Martin, when he hasn't been in this tournament as a coach, we've seen him do national television for CBS and other networks talking about the tournament. And I think that's because people appreciate him, and he is a national figure in that regard. And I think that the committee, they like to have guys like that. And you know, I don't think people are going to tune in for Frank Martin, but there will be people watching the games and see Frank Martin on there. It'll make for compelling television. So, and again, I don't want to make this sound like I'm saying that's why the Gamecocks are going to get in, but I do think these are conversations that humans have when they're sitting in a room eating that ice cream, coming up with their bracket.
All right, hang on. We'll be back. Sports Talk in just a moment.
Wake's up 3-0 in the second. Kenny Gaines.
We are back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut here in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena in beautiful downtown Nashville. What a gorgeous, fun city this is, and they are throwing up big new skyscrapers. Bridgestone is building a brand new 30-floor office tower just a couple of blocks down from its arena here, which it has the naming rights to for many, many years. Bridgestone, very big business in this community, much like the music business is huge here as well. If you haven't had a chance to come to Nashville to hang out, I never did until these tournaments moved here, and then I had some family move here, so it gave me a reason to come to Nashville. It is, and you've been here, K-Mac. This is a fabulous city.
Yeah, it's a great town. There is so much to do there. That's always so full of action and music and great food. I've never gone to Nashville and had a bad time. The only disappointing thing now is you have family there. Your son lives there, so you get first dibs on all those Nashville trips, and I haven't been in a while. That's a great place. Great place.
Yeah, you can pretty much strike Nashville off your visitation list for a while, but that means you get to cover the ACC stuff, which is fun. I've always enjoyed covering the ACC tournament because it's outside the Southern Conference tournament, of course. The Southern Conference, which gave birth to the ACC, it's the granddaddy of the conference tournaments, and it still carries a lot of history and nostalgia with it, especially when those Tobacco Road teams are in the mix late. Let's see, what did I wanted to say? Oh, yeah, just to complete our conversation, I double-checked Lenardi. He does have Vandy still in as an 11 seed in his last four in. Pittsburgh, Monmouth, the Rick Callahan's Monmouth, Vanderbilt, and St. Mary's. He's got Syracuse, Connecticut, Tulsa, and Valpo as his first four out, and he's got the Gamecocks now as an 8 seed as of this afternoon, an 8 seed playing in Raleigh against the 9 seed VCU. So we'll see what happens once the Gamecocks play this game tonight, and if they win, there's no question about it. And you might be right. Who knows? It's hard to argue with what you're saying. The 24 wins, the 11 SEC wins, the history of teams with those marks. You're right. They might very well be locked in. I do want to mention this little humorous note, at least humorous to us. I think that Dan Radakovich must have had something to do with planning the tournament here this year, because I'm up at the very top. I mean, the absolute last row of not really seating. This is a press box row that's used for hockey, I would imagine. They have Predators that played here in the National Hockey League. I'm at the very top. Nothing above me except ceiling. Well, actually, there is a box behind me that I guess they use for some press people. But where I sat last year, about 5 or 6 rows down from here, and maybe if you drop a tape measure, maybe 20, 30 feet below me, which is also a press row, they've now sold those seats. They are now reserved seats for fans to buy. So, wow. First thing that comes to my mind, Dan Radakovich, he got in touch with him and said, hey, here's a good idea for you. Sell the press seating, especially, and I will guarantee you, as I look below, that every one of those seats will be filled by a Kentucky person. I guarantee you somebody wearing blue will be sitting. And that's why they did it, I'm sure, knowing that there would be an opportunity to sell more tickets to Kentucky fans. So the point is, the SEC, never an organization to turn away from $1 if it could manufacture one, selling the press row seats to the public for the tournament. They had 15,000. They announced 15,000 for the afternoon session. And with Kentucky playing tonight, and I already see a lot of blue starting to fill in these blue seats here, it should be packed when Kentucky plays Alabama. And then when South Carolina plays Georgia, we might have 5,000 in here for it, unless the Kentucky fans want to hang around.
They'll stick around, and they will. And that's the one thing about Kentucky fans. And they cater to them at the SEC tournament, and they should, because Kentucky fans show up in mass, and they're good basketball fans. They actually will show up and watch the other teams play. They'll root for the underdogs, or if they know it's a team that they're going to be playing the next day, which they'll be playing the winner of the late game tomorrow in the semifinals, there will be a lot of Kentucky fans that stick around. And there might be more Kentucky fans in that arena than Georgia and South Carolina fans combined watching that game.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. Let's take a quick phone call. 800-956-7266 is the number. By the way, in baseball, Wake Forest is leading Clemson 4-0 as they play in the second inning. 4 runs off Clemson starter Charlie Barnes. 4-4-0 for Wake Forest. 0-1-0 for Clemson. So the Tigers, much as they did the other day, find themselves in an early hole. Will Craig, one of the best hitters in the ACC, hit a 2-run homer for Wake Forest. That was in the bottom of the first, and then the Deacons got another home run in the second inning. And so they've hit the long ball a couple of times off of Barnes. 4-0 Wake over Clemson, ACC opener for both teams. Let's go to Vern, listening to us in Bishopville tonight. Welcome in, Vern. How are you?
How are you? How you doing?
Good, sir. Good to have you with us.
Well, let me ask you something. Didn't Texas A&M, Carolina beat Texas A&M?
They did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they did. And Texas A&M, they're going to be in the tournament.
Yes, they are. They're the number 1 seed.
How you could miss out on that?
Well, I was talking about the last 10 games. I was talking about who they had beaten in the last 10 games or so, not who they'd beaten back in early February. I was talking about what their body of work had been most recently, because the people say the committee puts a lot of attention on your last 10 regular season games and then your postseason tournament.
Well, you know that's not true. They put emphasis on all the games, every one of them, from the beginning to the end. Anyway, and stuff like that, just give Carolina a break, and stuff. If they don't make the tournament, it will be because somebody don't like them. It won't be because of what they did and stuff like that, because you seem like we always get the tail end of everything, But Clemson, they get the tail end. When they do something right, everybody praises them. Like you're praising Clemson right now. But that baseball game, I hope they lose.
Wait a minute. How am I praising them when I say they're losing 4-0, Vern?
I hope
Vern, my man. You know what I got to do?
Clemson at nothing.
Hey,
But
Vern, do you know my good buddy in Columbia, the angry black man, also known as Trash Talking Tiger? Are you friendly with him by chance?
I'm his brother.
Are you his brother, really, or just his brother in sports? In sports
brother
world?
In sports, don't like Clemson at all.
Yeah,
not a little bit.
We need to get the two of you together for a debate. I think that would go over real well.
I sure hope you can, because I sure hope you can. Thank you. You have a good night, yeah?
All right, Vern. Thank you very much. Vern does not like the Tigers, and they're losing 4-0 to Wake Forest. Thanks for the phone.
He is right about South Carolina. They're a tournament team, Corn. I mean, there's no question that South Carolina is a tournament team. They have a tournament resume. They did enough in the regular season. They won enough games. They have quality wins. They have quality road wins. You check all those boxes. They're not smoke and mirrors. Are they a great team? Are they a top 4 seed? Are they a top 5 seed? No. But I think they are a legitimate 8 to 11 seed NCAA tournament team. No question.
All right, for their sake, I hope you're right. Hey, Sports Talk presented by South Carolina's 529 College Savings Plan. Future Scholar is the smart way to save for a loved one's education, and tax time is a perfect time to invest. Visit FutureScholar.com. Future Scholar is administered by the Office of State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. Give you a little detail on the first 2 games here today. It was the first game, Texas A&M over Florida, 72-66. A&M 25-7, 13-5. Florida 19-14 and 9-9. The Aggies led in scoring by Daniel House with 15. Tyler Davis had 15. Jalen Jones had 13. A&M shoots 39% for the game. The Gators were led in scoring by let's see, where's the Gators box here? The Gators were led in scoring by Casey Hill. Casey Hill had 18 points for the Gators. Gators shooting about 39%. We'll talk about that second game in just a moment here on Sports Talk. Alabama's on the court warming up. Kentucky just received its trophy for being the co-champion of the regular season in the SEC, along with Texas A&M. Kentucky beat Alabama twice in the regular season. Neither game was particularly close as far as the final margin is concerned. In Tuscaloosa, 77-61, the Wildcats, and in Lexington, 78-53. Obasahan, who's a terrific player, of course, from Alabama, he had 29 points in that second game. He had 21 points in the first game. So as he goes, of course, Alabama goes. He led the Crimson Tide in scoring just about every game this season. Let's give you recruiting here because the national anthem will be coming up in a little bit. I don't want to interfere with that. It's not do recruiting during the anthem. So let's tell you what we've got for you tonight. Defensive back Stephen Montag, 5'11", 185, Coffeyville Junior College in Kansas, would be one of the top junior college prospects in the 2017 class if he returned to Coffeyville this season. But he was a qualifier out of high school, out of Covington, Georgia, so he's eligible to leave in May, and that he may do as his recruiting interest picks up. Today he visited UAB in Alabama. Next weekend he plans to be at USC. He said USC defensive coordinator and secondary coach Travaris Robinson has been talking to him for a while and wants to see him up close at the junior day next Saturday. And he said he really likes him. They have a good relationship. He says he'll probably do some working out for the Gamecocks, but he wouldn't be surprised if they offered him. He said that Robinson likes his film. Montag has offers right now from Fresno State and Troy, interest from TCU, Indiana, Missouri, Mississippi State, North Carolina, UAB, and Alabama. At this point, USC and TCU stand out as his favorites, but he said if South Carolina offers, he said most likely he would go there. Called it a 95% chance. His teammate, Jamarcus King, of course, is a USC signee. Last season, Montag had 17 tackles, a pick, and 3 pass deflections. He'll have 3 years of eligibility at the next level if he comes out in May. Now, USC's new coaching staff has not had contact with former Gamecock signee defensive back Octavius Johnson, who's at Mississippi Gulf Coast Junior College. He was a prized recruit for Steve Spurrier's staff for the 2015 class, but failed to qualify. The Gamecocks arranged for him to go to the junior college with a plan to play there in 2015 and then graduate in the summer of 16, so he would only use 1 season of eligibility. But since he's not heard from Will Muschamp's staff, Johnson said he plans to play this season at Mississippi Gulf Coast. He said he has an offer from Mississippi State, and he has also heard from Auburn and Louisville. He is on track to graduate in December. Last season, he had 32 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 5 passes defended. Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables this week offered defensive back Amari Carter, 6'2", 180, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. He also has offers from Miami, Notre Dame, Duke, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Arkansas, FAU, Illinois, Kentucky, Syracuse, UCF, Wake Forest, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Said he was very excited about the Clemson offer, and he has a really good relationship with Venables. And so he plans to take a visit to Clemson in the near future. He's already been to Miami, Florida State, and FAU so far. Clemson target, defensive lineman Neil Farrell of Mobile, Alabama, was offered by Florida. Dutch Fork receiver Austin Connor today was offered by Tennessee. USC target, offensive lineman T.J. Moore of Charlotte, offered by Missouri, as was his teammate, offensive lineman Eric Douglas, who's a USC and Clemson target. And in basketball, Jeff Borzello of ESPN reported that VCU, Maryland, Wake Forest, Auburn, Boston College, Florida, Gulf Coast, those are among the schools to have reached out to Presbyterian transfer Deshaun Murray. All right, there you go with recruiting here on Sports Talk. Never forget to check it out on our website, sportstalksc.com. On Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting. That takes you to all the headlines, all the tweets, and also the tweets from other folks covering recruiting that we retweet. So you can find those as well. We are not ashamed or afraid to share the information of others because so many people out there right now are keeping an eye on and writing about recruiting. All right, coming up after the break, we'll continue from here in Nashville as well as Columbia. In our second hour, Lee Klein will be with us, our college basketball ambassador. We'll get his thoughts on the Gamecocks and how solidly he thinks they are in the NCAA tournament. We will also have Monty Dutton with us in the next hour, the full Monty on NASCAR. And we'll cap things off with a little football for you. Clemson offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator, Jeff Scott, who talked with the media this week after practice to update everyone on his view of the offensive side of things in spring practice so far. We'll let you hear from him as well, and we'll be right back with more in a moment. And we're back from Nashville. Sports Talk presented by South Carolina's 529 College Savings Plan. Future Scholar, the smart way to save for a loved one's education and tax time, a perfect time to invest. Visit FutureScholar.com. Future Scholar is administered by the Office of State Treasurer Curtis Loftus. National anthem time here, K-Mac. Take it away.
All right, Cornyn, we've got another game starting shortly at the ACC tournament. This is the semifinals for the ACC tournament because they do their championship on Saturday night instead of Sunday. They try to get things done and give their teams, their higher-seeded teams, an extra day off. It's something that Mike Krzyzewski in particular lobbied the league to do, and Mike Krzyzewski, he wants something done, it gets done. So we'll have Notre Dame and North Carolina playing in one of those semifinal matchups. Of course, Mike Krzyzewski is going to get plenty of rest. They got bounced out of the tournament yesterday by Notre Dame by blowing a second-half lead. And then in the nightcap in D.C., it's going to be Virginia and Miami, and the winners will meet tomorrow night for the ACC championship. Certainly all four of those teams left. No question that they are all alive and well and in the NCAA tournament when that field's announced on Sunday.
All right, good. I'm back with you. And, yeah, you're exactly right. Those are all teams that will be in the NCAA tournament when they pull out the names on Sunday. I did have an email in here I wanted to read from Danny the Dookie in Florence. Because, I've been picking on Duke a little bit, and justifiably so. Duke is not going to go deep in the NCAA tournament, all right? I hate to break that news to everybody who's a Duke fan. So he writes and he goes, this is typical of a Duke fan, K-Mac. Duke has more national titles than any school in South Carolina has tournament wins.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Let's see, another email in here to us from Bob. Bob says South Carolina beat A&M, a team going to the NCAA tournament, but Michigan beat Indiana today, which might position it to move off bubble and put South Carolina on bubble. Then a conference upset or two knocks South Carolina out. I don't think, lose tonight, and you might be right. K-Mac doesn't think so. Win tonight, I don't think there's any question South Carolina is in. I don't know, K-Mac. I think lose tonight, and they're going to be in discussion, and that's all I'm saying is avoid being in the discussion over the weekend. But you think otherwise. You think win or lose, they're in.
Yes, I think win or lose, they're in, and I think the discussion will be if they lose, where they're going to be seated. Would they put them in the play-in games, if you will, in Dayton? Would they make them be a 12 seed somewhere? They need to take this serious, and they don't want to lose 3 times to Georgia in the same season. It'd be 4 in a row going back to last year. I do worry a little bit about this matchup, especially if they don't have Carrera out there, because you mentioned how the Bulldogs have hurt them inside, and Carrera, he's just such a force inside there in terms of their rebounding and battling for the boards. And last time these two teams played in Columbia.
Up on the top of the hour break here, and we'll be back with more after the top of the hour break.
Oh, there's my thing. Sorry. My bad. My bad. Six to two.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Underway here in Nashville tonight. It's Kentucky and Alabama, and we're locked up in a tie early on. 5-5, good start both ways. Kentucky kind of winning the battle on the boards and extending some of its possessions. Now the Wildcats just score again to go up 7-5 early on. Long, tall inside Kentucky is getting a lot of rebounds and going up over Alabama on some of these possessions. By the way, it was announced today by John Calipari that his standout guard, the SEC Player of the Year, Tyler Ulis, is going to leave after this season to enter the draft. K-Mac, he's a talented player, no doubt about it. A little small, but I guess you look at a guy like Isaiah Thomas with the Celtics, who's not very tall either, 5'9", maybe. I don't think he's 5'10", maybe more like 5'8", but quickness and great outside shooting and instincts. There's a place for that in the NBA with the right team.
Certainly. And, Calipari, he's no stranger to guys bolting out of his program early. That's his blueprint. That's what he does. And that's why I think he should get more credit for his coaching ability. Him and his staff, they managed to get the most out of these guys despite the fact that they don't really have a lot of veteran players usually on their team. Most of them are one and done. If not, they're not there 2 years. They're very lucky. So I'm always impressed what he's able to do with that team year in and year out when he's got so many new faces to get them to buy in and learn his system and play hard for him and make the kind of runs that they've made.
Now they have taken a 7-5 lead to the first media timeout, and I mentioned the rebounding already for Kentucky in the first almost 5 minutes of this game. They've got 4 offensive rebounds and 5 second-chance points, so obviously that's something that Alabama is going to have to address. Notre Dame and North Carolina, they are not yet underway in Washington, one of the 2 semifinal games tonight. How about that Connecticut-Cincinnati game? in the AAC quarterfinal. Unbelievable ending in the third overtime. Connecticut hits a shot with 0.8 of a second to go. Looks like they're going to win. It's a three-pointer, puts them up 3, and Cincinnati player heaves it 75 feet. He makes the shot. They go to a fourth overtime, and Connecticut ended up winning. But that's just the kind of drama you look for in these tournaments. You never know when and where it's going to come.
Yeah, 4 overtimes. And UConn seems like they play in one of those every other year. That's a big-time game for them. I remember one of their Big East games. It might have been against Louisville when they were still in the Big East before that thing went the way of the dinosaur, at least in its old form. But that's a heck of a basketball game. That's what you love about March. That's really March Madness. It starts with these conference tournaments and those kind of games and the buzzer beaters and the drama. And it's just, this is a great time of year if you love college basketball, if you love sports.
All right, and in baseball at Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons still lead Clemson. The Tigers are on the board. They trail 6-2 in the top of the fourth.
Is this chair? Oh, man.
All right, back here in Nashville as well as Columbia, it's 10-7, Kentucky leading Alabama in the first half. Up in D.C., North Carolina leading Notre Dame 10-9. In baseball, Clemson trailing Wake Forest 6-2 in the fourth. And in baseball, USC and Charleston Southern scoreless in the bottom of the first inning in Columbia. In a moment, Lee Klein joins us here on Sports Talk. South Carolina Forestry Commission reminds you insects and diseases can be moved hundreds of miles in firewood and threaten forests and campsites and neighborhoods. State and national parks help protect the trees you love by purchasing firewood at or near where you burn it. For more information, visit don'tmovefirewood.org. All right, our basketball ambassador, Lee Klein, joining us tonight. Great time of year for the former coach, director of the Five-Star Camps, basketball author, and all around good guy. Where are you tonight? Are you at a game somewhere?
I am in Boston, amongst other things, because there's not enough going on in the basketball world. I'm at the MIT Sports Analytics Conference where, every NBA team's representative as we learn where the game is going to and the trends in that part. So it's a beautiful night in Boston, and it's a beautiful time of year. It's hard to believe that we're this close to the selection show when all the tickets will be punched, and we will know who will represent us in the wildest 3-week ride of college basketball.
As we hit our second media timeout here, Alabama has taken a 12-10 lead on Kentucky. Let me ask you, South Carolina and Georgia tonight, we've had this discussion in the first 45 minutes of our show. Is South Carolina a lock for the tournament, win or lose tonight? Or if they lose, will they be in heavy discussion by the committee whether or not to give them an at-large bid? What do you think about South Carolina's fate as it stands here tonight?
I think if they win, there's no conversation about it. I think if you lose, now all of a sudden you got to decide, Michigan or South Carolina, Syracuse, South Carolina. You start to get into those discussions. So, you know what? If you're a tournament team, you got to beat Georgia in this game. I mean, this is, it's about making the tournament, but it's also about picking teams that got the best chance to advance when we look at the at-large positions. This would be a great step for the program, and one that Frank Martin needs to be able to take by getting this win tonight. I know they lost earlier in the year to Georgia. Mark Fox does a nice job. He's really, he's talented. I think this is a game, though, that South Carolina, you got to contain J.J. Frazier, and you got to find a way to win this game.
All right. One has caught your eye around the country as these tournaments are being played out. What's been the biggest surprise that you've seen? What's been maybe the biggest disappointment? What do you recall from that standpoint so far?
Well, I think, the Michigan win, when we look at it from a tournament perspective, Michigan beating Indiana and what that means. One, for Michigan, are they in now? Do they got to win another game? Indiana obviously won the Big Ten with a lot of doubters, naysayers. Now you're going to get all up again, how good is this team? Was it a product of schedule and so on? So to me, it's fascinating in that regard. The best game of the day was clearly the UConn 4-overtime victory over Cincinnati. Two desperate teams that are also trying to find a way in the tournament. So all of that, that's why this time's a great time of year.
Yeah. From your experience and your knowledge, when the committee gets together, traditionally, what are some of the things that they'll talk about when it comes to these at-large teams? For example, we often hear that they focus on the last 10 games of the regular season and what they did in their conference tournament. Is that correct as far as you know, and what other things will they look at?
Who's going to draw? I mean, that's like Carolina being Raleigh and so on. Who's going to draw, sell some tickets, fill those games. But, last 10 is important. The committee chair was recently on the radio, and he's looking at 68 different metrics and bringing it to the table to try to determine who's in and who's out. When you have that much, you can make a case for just about anybody. I still think this is a power conference dominated field. They're the ones that bring the money in, and that's who's represented. So I do think the power conferences have a great advantage when we look at this. But we'll see. There's a lot of mediocrity that you choose in between. There's not a lot of difference between a mediocre USC team or a mediocre Syracuse team or, a good mid-major team like St. Mary's or Monmouth. So that's kind of the difficult, you're picking hairs trying to figure out who could be in.
Yeah. Do you think personalities come into play? For example, the committee might want to see Frank Martin get a shot in the tournament once again because of his reputation, or a school like South Carolina, which hasn't been there in the tournament in 12 years and hasn't won a tournament game since 1973, and it would make for a nice story. Do they look at things like that?
No, not at all. I mean, they don't care about that. I mean, since Eddie Fogler took the Gamecocks there, they haven't been back in, and they were upset. Look, I mean, I think that the SEC demands, some respect, and they're good for 3 teams in, and South Carolina should be the 3rd team in. Can they get 4? We'll see what happens with LSU. That's sort of, I think, where we're at with the conference.
How about Duke, the defending champions? They go out yesterday after blowing that big lead to Notre Dame. Certainly they're in the tournament, but my question is, do you think that they make a deep run in the tournament?
No, and they know that. I mean, they've got 3 offensively talented guys, between Kennard and Ingram and Grayson Allen, but they have no inside threat. They've got no ability to protect the rim. It's a shell of the team that won the championship. Krzyzewski's done a great job with what he's got, but this is a team that'll be lucky to win a tournament game.
Oh, really? Even a first-round game?
I think they're a 5 seed. They're hanging on to be a 5 seed and barely be, having to face a game 12 seed like a Monmouth or Valpo that's won a lot of games. And, the Duke team, again, without having the ability to protect the rim and have a real frontline scoring threat, is so perimeter oriented. It just becomes, and they're not great defensively on the perimeter. I just think that it's only a matter of time before they get beat.
Yeah. You echo my sentiments about the Blue Devils. Here it's Kentucky 18-15 and North Carolina leading Notre Dame 15-12. Real quick, what experience in your coaching days did you have dealing with Kentucky fans?
This is, the passionate fan base. Look, when it's rolling like it is for the Cats, when I was in Texas, Arkansas was going to the Final Four, and same sort of fandom and love for this team. I mean, it's just the way it is. It becomes a religion down there, and that's what it is. And it's part of what makes college sports so incredible is the fandom and the passion for it and how important it is for the regular person's life. That's what we're seeing in Kentucky now. And, it's great in that respect, but it's also, when you're the visiting team, it's not so much fun.
Yeah, they got a ton of fans here. 15 seconds. Ulis turning pro after this season. Can he make it in the NBA?
I love Tyler Ulis as a player. I mean, he's going to be, too small, too this, too that. But, the way that the NBA game's changed, this freedom of movement roles, Tyler Ulis is going to be just fine in the NBA. So if he goes, that's the guy I want on my team because he knows how to run a team. He's a leader. he might not fit the prototypical, composition of an NBA player, but that kid can just flat out play.
Lee, as always, we thank you for your commentary tonight here on Sports Talk. Lee Klein. We'll be right back. Let's update things. 8:06 to go in the first half here in Nashville. Media timeout. Kentucky leading Alabama 21-15. Both teams are shooting 50% from the floor so far. Both teams have 3 3-pointers. And Alabama's turned it over 5 times. Kentucky 4 times. Kentucky winning on the boards 9-5, including 5 offensive boards. They've turned in to 6 second chance points. And let's see, Hawkins is leading Kentucky in scoring. Dominique Hawkins with 5 points thus far. And for Alabama, Arthur Edwards leading the way with 8 points thus far. Up in D.C., media timeout, 10:52 to go in the half. North Carolina leading Notre Dame. 17-12, Irish, only 1 for their last 9. North Carolina shooting 50%. The Irish 29%. North Carolina winning on the boards 12-5. And as far as your leading scorer for North Carolina, it's 2 of them, Berry and Meeks, each with 5. Bryce Johnson has yet to score and yet to he's got 3 rebounds, but he has yet to score, and yet they are still leading. Jackson has 5 and August has 4 for the Fighting Irish. In baseball, Clemson got 2 in the top of the 4th to get on the board against Wake Forest, and it was Seth Beer homering down the left field line. It was a 2-run homer to get the Tigers on the board. They're down 6-2 as they play in the 5th inning. 6-1 for Wake, 2-5-0 for the Tigers. Charlie Barnes remains on the mound for Clemson. He's gone 4 innings, allowed 6 hits, 6 earned runs. He has struck out 6, and he's hit a batter. Has not walked anybody. Over at USC, Gamecocks and Charleston Southern, they are scoreless as they play in the bottom of the 2nd inning. Qualifying in Phoenix for NASCAR's race this weekend will be coming up in just a little bit. Keep you on top of that. In fact, we'll have the full Monty on NASCAR coming up here at the bottom of the hour. And let's see, on the PGA Tour, the Valspar Championship taking place in Palm Harbor, Florida. Will McKenzie, Steve Stricker, they share the lead at 5 under par. Daniel Berger, Graham DeLay, and Bill Haas are at 4 under par. Haas had a 67 today. And Scott Brown, Retief Goosen, Ryan Moore, Justin Thomas, Charles Howell III, and Jerry Kelly, they are at 3 under par. K-Mac, you got anything you want to add to the updates there, or we covered everything as far as you know?
As far as I know, Corn, I can update a lot of I-95 that I've seen here over the past few days.
Yeah, how's construction there on I-95 around D.C.?
It's coming along. I'll tell you what's really under construction is the Capitol. That thing's full of scaffolding now, our nation's, the Capitol building.
That's your tax dollars at work. We'll be back. Full Monty on NASCAR coming up here on Sports Talk. All right, Kentucky continues to lead 27-19 now with 4:20 to go. And as I look around this arena, it does appear to be that practically every seat is filled, and almost every seat is taken by a Kentucky fan. I see a dot of red here and there representing Alabama. I see a couple of orange shirts left over from Tennessee. There might be a little garnet out there. Garnet and red from Alabama, garnet from USC, but not much. I'm telling you, it's the Kentucky Invitational, which, you know, folks here in Nashville, they don't care where the money comes from as long as the money flows in. And it is a packed house with Kentucky fans here tonight. And they are enjoying a 27-19 lead by their team. In D.C., North Carolina leading Notre Dame 23-20. USC has scored against Charleston Southern, taking a 2-0 lead in the bottom of the second inning. Gamecocks scored via some mistakes by Charleston Southern. Arendis reached on a drop fly ball by the left fielder, went to second base, and Cullen scored an unearned run. Then Mooney reached on a throwing error and advanced to second base, and Arendis scored. So 2 unearned runs for the Gamecocks against Charleston Southern. 2 errors on the Bucks. Gamecocks lead 2-0. Clemson continues to trail at Winston-Salem 6-2. Normally we have the full Monty on NASCAR at this point. Monty has not been connected with us yet. Hopefully we'll grab him here in just a moment. If not, we'll go to Jeff Scott and hear from him. Have that standing by, Larkin, if you would. I'll tell you, qualifying, round 2 of qualifying is over. States are getting ready to go to round 3. The 12 drivers advancing to round 3. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth, Kurt Busch, Kyle Larson, Jimmy Johnson, Jimmy McMurray, Martin Truex Jr., Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Ryan Blaney. Fastest speed in round 2 by Hamlin, 138.042. Busch, 138 even. Edwards, 137.9, and Logano, 137.8. So, not yet hooked up with Monty, so we'll hold off for him. Let's talk a little Clemson football. Remember, USC will begin spring football on Tuesday. Will Muschamp will have a press conference on Monday to preview. The Gamecocks will take the field for the first time under their new head coach, their new coaching staff on Tuesday. A lot of excitement and anticipation there. Clemson football is off until March 21st for spring break. The Tigers got in 6 practice sessions, culminating with their practice on Wednesday before going on spring break. After that practice, co-offensive coordinator Jeff Scott met with the media to talk about what he has seen from his offense through those 6 practices of the spring.
I feel good. I feel like our guys really picked up right where we left off there in January. A lot of retention. I really like the chemistry among the group. Very few missed assignments. Really good job by the guys up front, offensive line. We got 2 groups that are doing an excellent job, and I can't remember a time around here where we've had 2 groups. Really pleased with the young guys. Both Tremaine and Sean Pollard have done a good job jumping in. Very conscientious guys, going to be good players for us. So overall, a lot of good things, a lot of things to correct like you're always going to have in the spring. Really spend a lot of time working on fundamentals, technique, footwork, all those type of things more than scheme. And but really pleased where the guys are after 6 days.
Tell these guys today as they go off for spring break for the next week.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Coach Sweeney does a good job kind of setting the stage for that, just reminding the guys that they represent Clemson whenever they leave. And, you know, the more success you have, the more scrutiny you're going to have. And, you know, represent Clemson the right way and make good decisions. And then, you know, obviously, whenever they come back, be ready to finish spring practice the right way. We're just about halfway in, and we don't want to be starting over whenever we come back on that Monday. Hope you guys will have good retention and we'll have meetings on Sunday before that first practice whenever we get back.
Jeff, there's already a lot of buzz out there about what this offense is going to be able to achieve, and how have these guys kind of taken that in and just not really. I mean, does it affect them at all when people say they have to outscore everybody they play, they're put up a ridiculous amount of points, yards, that kind of thing?
I think the big thing for us is really we started the spring with the offense and a team meeting, an offensive meeting, just like we did, the last 2 or 3 years. And hey, it's time to start over. Do we have the potential to be really special? Yes, we do. Why did we have the success we had last year? Because we had a lot of guys that bought in that were willing to work, and we've got to start over. Yes, there is some retention, but really we need to start over. And that's really going back to the fundamentals, the technique, all those type of things, and really focusing on the little things more than the big things. Because if we can get consumed by the little things, then I think it'll take our attention away from all the other things that are out there. But I mean, these guys know what they have the potential to do, but they also know it's a very fine line. We go back and watch all the cut-ups, and there's a lot of things, through last season that, we're very close in us having the success and winning a game or losing a game. So it's a very fine line. And but I really like the way the guys work. I don't see any complacency or anything like that. These guys have a good fire, good work ethic, and just going to work. And that's really what they've done since they've been here, this group of older group of leaders.
Is year two different for you and Tony as far as the way you guys do things?
I think having the entire offensive staff back really helps. I mean, I think, it's been documented we work together really well. So I think everybody knows everything we're trying to do. So it's been really smooth, and we challenged ourselves as coaches to get better. Just like we challenge our players, Coach Sweeney always is challenging our staff to get better at what we're doing. We did that kind of during the time off before spring practice. But we've got good chemistry on our staff, and I think that's contagious. And I think our players, have good chemistry because of the chemistry that we're hopefully being a great example with.
When you have seasons like Deshaun and even Wayne had last year, people say, well, we expect them to be even better. But how do you improve on what were just absolutely great seasons?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is, like we said, just go back to work, and you don't, worry about any of that stuff. I mean, Coach Sweeney did a great job in the team meeting the other day. He asked our players to name the last 5 Heisman Trophy winners. They couldn't get past the last 2. Nobody remembered any of the others. I mean, nobody cares all the awards that Deshaun won last year. That's over. It's a new year and a new focus, and so that's really where our attention is really putting everything from last year to bed and really focusing on this year. And how can we get better? How can we improve? How can we finish when we get those opportunities to finish where maybe we didn't there in that last game? That's all things that we're talking about this spring. That'll be focused as we go out through spring and summer.
Do you think about how blessed you've been as a position coach with the guys you've had since 2010?
Absolutely. The one advantage that I had growing up is my dad always told me to be sure that you're recruiting great players at your position. That's something I learned at a very early stage, and we've been very fortunate to have some high quality players, and I think whenever they come and have success, it helps recruiting that next group because they see the success that you've had. But I give these guys a lot of credit, and I think our guys in our room, in the wide receiver room, they take a lot of pride in the success and accomplishments that the wide receivers before them have had at Clemson.
All right, that's Jeff Scott, Clemson co-offensive coordinator. K-Mac, it appears to this point in spring practice, Tigers are right on schedule, and especially on the defensive side where they've got to fill in for some guys that are leaving, headed to the NFL. It sounds like they have got players who are willing and able to step in, linebacker, secondary. Now, it was too bad that Adrian Baker went down with a torn ACL, but I think they're going to be just fine on defense. And, again, with that offense, they don't have to be great on defense. Just be very good, but they'll probably be better than very good. Don't know if they'll be great, but they'll be very good or maybe a smidge better. Kentucky up on Alabama 34-25, 8.5. Halftime here, Kentucky leading Alabama 37-27. Up in D.C., late in the half, North Carolina running away from Notre Dame 37-22. Clemson scores a run in the sixth. Tigers trailing Wake Forest now 6-3. And in the sixth, it was Jolly getting the RBI with a single up the middle. Tigers were down 6-0. They're now back to within 6-3. Over in Columbia, USC continues to lead Charleston Southern 2-0. Qualifying ongoing at Phoenix. They are into the third round of the qualifying. And let's update what's happening there as we bring in Monty Dutton for the full Monty on NASCAR. It's Kyle Busch right now leading at 138.387. Kurt Busch next at 137.394. Monty joining us now, the full Monty on NASCAR, MontyDutton.com for all his writings about NASCAR and other things. Good to have you with us here. Time is a little bit short, so let me ask you, what have you taken out of the activities at Phoenix so far this weekend?
Well, Phoenix is one of those rare tracks where there's a sort of small number of people. I mean, Kevin Harvick has won 5 of the last 7 races there, so he's obviously a big favorite. He's one of those, there's always places where a Jimmy Johnson will have the Master at Dover, or Jeff Gordon, or whatever. This is one of those places where a guy's cornered the market, and it's sort of important for the others to step up and prove that they can run that track as well as he can.
You know, you mentioned Harvick, and he has done some great things there. And one of the stories going into this weekend involves his team and the switch to Ford next year and how that's going to impact him because he's been a Chevrolet driver throughout his career. What do you think is going to happen with that? Think that will lead to any kind of a change?
I don't think so, because I think that the fact is that I think in this day and age, the cars are so much like everything else, and people make a seamless transition from one to the other, as Joe Gibbs went from Chevrolet to Toyota a few years ago. The cars are so much more standard, there's not that much difference. And the other side of it is, I think that drivers are brand loyal while they're driving that brand. Carl Edwards used to be higher on Ford than Edsel Ford was. And now he's driving a Toyota, and he doesn't talk about how wonderful. So I think the drivers just want a fast car, and I don't think brand loyalty means a thing anymore.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. All right, what'd you think about last week's race as we continue to work in this new package that they have instituted this year? Last week, Las Vegas, Brad Keselowski gets the win. Some late passing going on and some issues. Kyle Busch with his car and the vibration, et cetera, et cetera. How do you feel about the way that race played out?
I think it's pretty good. I think that I think the racing is a little bit better, but I think that the teams are well underway trying to undercut all the advances that have been made, because race teams don't want it to be real close. They want to win big. They want to have an unfair advantage. And I thought that Brad Keselowski showed a lot of candor afterwards, because he said, we've got to keep this racing good because it's the job of my team to probably undermine these changes. So I think that right now, I think the racing is a little better, but everybody is screaming that it's a lot better, because I think there's just sort of a talking point madness going on. When I look at it, it's a little better, but it's not dramatically better.
All right. And if not Harvick this weekend, then who?
One of those Gibbs Toyotas, I would guess Kyle Busch is about to, wouldn't you?
I would say so. What about Logano?
Well, there's obviously the Fords. There's a lot of balance now. There's been 3 races, 1 Chevy, 1 Toyota, and 1 Ford. And obviously the only reason that Penske is not viewed as being Hendrick or Gibbs is because Penske just runs 2 cars. The 2 cars he's got are every bit as good. Well, I think maybe, one interesting thing about Phoenix is Phoenix is the only place that Harvick wins. This guy wins there, but he says his second 15 times last year. So it seems to be the only place he wins.
Yeah, he's got it down pat. Monty, We appreciate it, and we will talk to you next week. Monty Dutton, the full Monty on NASCAR. Actually, not the full Monty this week because he was tied up with something when we called him at the bottom of the hour, so we got the half Monty on NASCAR. But half Monty on NASCAR is better than no Monty on NASCAR, and we appreciate him joining us tonight. And let me take another peek at what's happening in qualifying, and it looks like perhaps it may be over. Let me see. Going to have to go to the front page here, but it looks like it might be over. And my guess is it is over, and my guess is that Kyle Busch has won the pole. And we'll tell you about that when we come back from the break. All right, what happened in qualifying at Phoenix is Jimmy Johnson hit the wall and hit the wall hard, and they brought out a red flag. He had to go to the infield care center, but he was cleared. One of those deals where he just made a hard right turn into the wall and smacked it really hard. I guess he did some damage to the barrier there at the wall, and they've had to stop qualifying at this point and red flag it. And they'll finish it up in just a little bit. 1 minute and 21 seconds left in qualifying when that happened. And it is Kyle Busch leading 138.387 and Kurt Busch second, 137.394. In D.C., K-Mac, North Carolina has turned it into a rout at halftime, 41-22. An 18-0 run came back for the Tar Heels to close out the first half. They look like they're getting better now by the game. They were very good in the opening round, obviously outstanding tonight, and barring a complete collapse, they'll be moving on to the championship tomorrow night.
Brad Brownell says this is not over just yet. But you're right, North Carolina. They are looking they really have been playing motivated basketball a while. So they're the team to beat in that tournament now that Duke's gone.
Yeah, Tar Heels shooting 50% from the floor, 5 of 11 from 3, and Barry has 10. Page has 11. Johnson only 4 points and 3 rebounds for the Irish. It's Beecham with 8 points. Here it's 37-27. Kentucky at the break, and I'll give you some stats in just a moment. The old internet slowing down here a little bit. The Wildcats shoot 54%, 6 of 10 from 3. And leading the way for them, Poitras with 8, Murray with 8, and high for Alabama, Edwards with 14. Wanted to mention the other game of the day here. It was LSU winning and advancing. LSU, a winner over Tennessee. Tennessee just running out of gas. Actually, this was a tied ball game in the last 5 minutes. And you're thinking, oh, my gosh, Tennessee's going to do it again. But LSU pulled away 84-75. Leading the way for LSU with 22 was Antonio Blakeney. Tim Quarterman had 18. Ben Simmons had 15 and 8. And in assists. And for Tennessee, Robert Hubbs III and Dietrich Mostella had 19 each. Vols finish at 15 and 19, 6 and 12. Tigers 19 and 13, 11 and 7, and they're going to the semifinals. You think they're a lock for the NCAA, K-Mac, or do they need to win another one?
They probably wouldn't hurt to win another one. They've been on that bubble most of the season, but everybody wants Ben Simmons in. I know Lee Klein doesn't believe me, but I still think that matters.
Okay, my man. Have a great weekend, K-Mac. Thank you, Larkin Belton, for a great job. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. We'll be back Monday night to talk about the tournament, spring football at USC, and a heck of a lot more. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday night.